Hey there. Turn that off. I'm going to do a quick practice session, but quick. I don't know how long my practice session is going to go. Today I'm practicing soprano. Been putting a lot more work in soprano lately. One of the reasons is, well, we're developing the Better Sax Classic Soprano. We also have this mouthpiece coming out. This is the Better Sax Burn-In for soprano. This is coming out in a week. So I'm practicing this. I'm going to make a really cool video about soprano saxophone this week. It's going to come out next week when we launch the mouthpiece. And I said, hey, let's just share my practice session with you guys. Maybe you get some ideas on what to practice. My plan is to just mostly play, tell you what I'm about to do, like what I'm going to practice, and then I'm just going to do it like I would really, the way I normally practice, for real. So it's going to be not a lot of talking. So on soprano, you know, the sound on all the saxophones is really important. Sound and intonation are really challenging, right? So I'm going to practice long tones first. And this is how I practice long tones. I got my AirPods in. That's so that I can hear the drone played by this app. And if I press this button here, it's going to hear the note I play and play a drone of that same note in my ear so that I can match my pitch. So I'm going to play long tones on every note of the saxophone. And I'm going to start on middle C, go down, and go back to middle C, and go up. So this is part one. When you're doing this, a good idea is you want to hear before you play the long tone, hear it first. Like hear the note in tune in your head and then play it. You want to match the pitch that's coming out of the saxophone with the one you're hearing in your head before you even play. One thing I'm thinking about while I'm playing these long tones. Well, I'm thinking of a lot of things, mainly intonation, but I'm also trying to keep my hands relaxed. I'm practicing good hand position even though I'm playing one note. And I know that seems counterintuitive, but if you just really get used to keeping your hands relaxed and in a good position, fingers on the keep rolls while you're playing one note at a time, it's going to carry over when you're playing a lot more notes. So when you have the drone in your ear, you want to try to match your pitch, and you will hear, if you're out of tune, you're going to hear these nodes or these pulses in the sound. You guys can't hear what I'm hearing, but you want to try to match the pitch in your ears. Also notice that this is set to ultra fine. It's very unforgiving when it's on ultra fine. Okay, so that's going down. Now I'm going to go back to middle C and go up. And I can see your comments. While I'm playing these, I'm reading your comments. So if you guys want to say hello or tell me where you're tuning in from, go ahead. And you should all get your saxophones out if you can and practice along. Let's do what I'm doing. I'm not hearing my drone anymore. That's the problem. Okay, so, and that is an interesting point. Notice how it's so much easier to play in tune when you have a pitch reference that you're comparing in your ear. If you're trying to practice tuning and you're just visually looking at the tuner, you're going to make life really hard for yourself, because you're always going to be adjusting to this thing that's slightly delayed. Don't do that. Use the drones. Yeah, the Barry and Soprano are both in production now. They will be available to purchase in 2025, first half of 2025. So as you do this, especially if you haven't been doing it a lot, you'll start to get a little bit fatigued. So depending on how fatigued you get, and then your lip might flutter like that. Now that's a sign that you want to do more of these to build up the strength. But at a certain point, everyone's going to get tired just doing long tones. But that's why it's such a good way to build up the strength. Now, one thing you could do is take little breaks or move on to something else. Now, the upper range of the soprano is also the spot, for me at least, where you really have to do the most work. Now, after I'll do my, and I would normally go up. I'll see how tired I get. I would normally go up, like even into the altissimo range. Was I adjusting my ligature? I don't think I was. That's like a tick. This is pointless. This is like when, oh, what do I do with myself? Oh, I'll do that, or I'll turn something on my saxophone. It's meaningless. There's no adjustment happening there. Okay. Okay. That might be painful for some of you to listen to. Really important is kind of protecting your ears. I have loads of earplugs. Like these are custom molded earplugs that I use these a lot. I have other earplugs like these that I use when I'm practicing. These ones. Won't focus on it, but earplugs is so important. So especially if you're going to be practicing soprano, and especially if you're going to be practicing those high notes in altissimo, like you got to protect your ears. You can use like AirPods in transparency mode. That seems to do a pretty good job of reducing the sound, but allowing you to still hear yourself. You could also put them in. You could also put your AirPods in noise cancellation mode, but that muffles the sound a bit too much. Yeah. And then, somebody asks, well, what are you achieving by this kind of practice? Building embouchure strength, improving my intonation, developing my sound, you know, in this case on soprano. Like, if you want to play altissimo on soprano, like there's no way you're going to be able to play. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there's no way I would be able to play altissimo on soprano if I didn't practice stuff like this. Okay, next thing I would do, still working on sound, is I'm going to go to playing overtones. And like overtones are important on every saxophone, but like especially if like a doubling instrument, you know, not your main, if you're mainly alto or mainly tenor, the ones that you don't play the most, like play your overtones. That's really going to help you, you know, get a sound on that instrument and be able to control that sound. So same thing, drone. Okay. On soprano, I could get up to like that one, the 1, 2, 3, like the fourth one. So for the overtones, as you get into those higher ones, you got to back off on the air. I know it seems like it's a note you got to like force out, but they really require very little air because it's like a really high frequency and just physics. It doesn't need a lot of air. So if you back off on the air and kind of search for that sound somewhere back here, you can get those. And I'm still working on getting the higher overtones on soprano. And you could keep going with that. Like another really good exercise for overtones that I got from Ben Wendell, that's in Ben Wendell's book, is if you just take the first partial and move that up and down with long tones. So I'll demonstrate that. Okay, so what I'm doing there is I'm fingering the lower note, like fingering low B flat, but playing B flat an octave higher, and just taking that and then going up chromatically, and every note is an octave higher. And you still want to try to play those in tune, so you have your drones going. And all being able to do, like, if you can play your overtones in tune, it's going to be that much easier to play your normal notes in tune, so that we're training that into control. Yeah, soprano is hard. That's why you got to put lots of time practicing into it. Okay, once I've done that for a while, and like, so with the soprano, that's how I'm going to start. Yeah, people say, like, I don't have the patience for the long tones and all that. You know, you could, yeah, you don't have to do it. You could just play ballads, and you could just play slowly instead, if that's what you want to do. I got patience, and I find this to be more efficient. Because if I'm playing a ballad, for example, I'm not going to be necessarily playing the lowest notes up to the highest notes of the saxophone. There's no ballad that has every note in it. Yeah, and I could maybe change my ballad, the key, and change the register of it. I could do all that, or I could just play each note one at a time, and then I could really focus on each note and learn how each note on any given saxophone is a little bit different, tone color wise or intonation wise, and be able to dial that in with the details. So that's why I do it. I find it to be really efficient. It gets really, really good results, especially if you do that daily. Like, if anybody that doesn't do that, if you do that every day for a month and then tell me that it didn't really help, I mean, I'd be shocked if you didn't get amazing results from it. And the other thing, you know, it's great for, like I said earlier, for working on instruments that are not your main instrument, and it's kind of meditative. Like, it gets you in a nice calm state. It's like meditating. You just get relaxed and you could focus more. So then when you get into the next stage of your practice, you're more focused. Oh yeah. Okay, so next stage is going to be some sort of I'm going to do some sort of technical practice. So yeah, I don't know. I might put this at like, so I've got this set. So it's just clicking on 2 and 4. You can't hear it, but it's going. Click. Doesn't really matter. It could be 1 and 3. It could be whatever. I just do it like that. And then I don't always do that, but that's what I just set it up like that. And I'll practice something. I'll pick some sort of technical exercise. And it might be something that's just purely technical to get better at playing technique, and there might be something that I'm on like some sort of jazz vocabulary or language. Pain in the right arm when holding soprano. I mean, if you don't play a lot of soprano, it's going to feel uncomfortable at first probably, and then you're going to get used to it like everything else. So the other day I started playing this. I was just playing something really simple, just chromatic. I was just coming up with chromatic patterns, chromatic scale patterns, and moving them around. So I want to say hello to Emma, who I recognize as a really good saxophone player. Hey, Emma, thanks for tuning in. What kind of reed do you like with the soprano? Good question. I like slightly harder reeds on soprano because you just need a little bit more resistance for the intonation and for playing up high. And bass sax enjoyer says, have you ever tried a bass sax? I have. Played the two backs. I've played bass sax. I don't have a bass sax. I want one. I'm assuming that if your handle is bass sax enjoyer, that you have a bass sax. Thank you, Emma. I'm definitely not the best, but okay. Where was I? This is just chromatic, and I like to, when I'm practicing, I try to make up something new every time. I mean, it's great to go through your books. I have all the books, and you go through all that stuff. But if you can get to the point where you're just making up your own exercises, you know, it's more customized to what you need. Okay. Yeah, so for that one, I was like, oh, I can just leave my C sharp key down. I don't need to, you know. You learn just by doing stuff. Sometimes you stay on one spot and you could figure out, you know, these little things, the better way to play something. All right, let's keep doing. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do that exercise. Hopefully you guys can hear where that goes. And if you're playing along, you just play along with me. 1, 2. Yeah. Yes, and that's kind of, I mean, I would usually play something like that, maybe a little bit faster, but it's good to play stuff slow too, because it's actually harder in a lot of, like, especially, you know, you just end up playing longer and then it's harder for your chops. So, but let's try to, and if I want to play it faster, I might go this a little bit slower. Accuracy is more important than speed, really. Let's try there. I'm going to kind of double time it, though. When you find a spot that's tricky, stay there. Stay there for a while until it's not tricky anymore. Some spots are going to be trickier than others, right? How do you hit high notes without squeezing the reed? Well, like I was saying earlier when we were doing the really high notes. Higher notes, this, I didn't realize this for a very long time, but higher notes on saxophones, all saxophones require less air because, and this is just physics, it's how the reed vibrates. Like when you're playing low notes, you know, the tube is this long. Like if I'm playing a B flat on soprano, the tube goes all the way from here to the end, okay? So just physically, you have to, it takes more air before the airstream, the wave ends. When you're playing up here and, you know, these holes are open, it's much shorter. Okay, so you just don't need as much air. Oh no, I did something and it made this thing follow me. That's annoying. I have to turn that feature off. I don't even know how to do it. Okay, maybe that did it. No. Hold on, let me fix that. Where is it? I got this new Insta360 webcam, which is awesome, but it has like, oh, we don't want the AI tracking on. There we go. There we go. Got it. Yeah, so you don't have to put as much air in them. You don't have to squeeze really hard and blow a lot of air to get the high notes. So, but you do need strength here so that you are going to be putting a little bit more pressure on the reed on higher notes. That's also physics too. Like the reed is vibrating at the frequency of the note. Okay, so on a lower note, it's vibrating slower. On a higher note, it's vibrating faster. It's just, it's necessary that there's going to be a little bit more pressure on the reed. The stronger you are here, the more control you're going to be able to have so that you don't cross over into biting. When we don't have a lot of strength here, we end up biting because that's the only way because our muscles are not strong enough to support just with the muscles, so we end up biting and we just don't have control, and that's why we want to practice those overtones. Okay. Oh, and if you're coming from if you're coming from clarinet, see that's the thing, clarinet, there's more pressure and it's higher range, and you just, the way clarinet works is the embouchure is tighter. Otherwise, you always end up being flat. So clarinet players going from clarinet to saxophone, you gotta relax the embouchure quite a bit. And by the same token, for saxophones going to clarinet, you have to tighten up. Okay. All right, so I'm kind of bored with that chromatic exercise. It's just not that fun. Let's do something more fun. Let's play a like a bebop line. Let's take a bebop line and learn it through all 12 keys. And we're just kind of, yeah, this is a better sax soprano. This is a prototype. It's like kind of a Frankenstein saxophone here. But the real thing is going to be going into production relatively soon. Okay, I just had that line in my head. So you could just, like a good thing with these bebop lines, if you have something that you can lift from a recording or a transcription, great. If you have something from a book, that's good too. But if you have something that you can hear in your head too, like that might be like the ultimate. So that's, you know, real straight ahead. That's, you know, really in the tradition. So I'm just, this is in the key of, you know, concert B flat. This, it's like I'm thinking of on soprano saxophone, D minor 7. Arpeggiating up that D minor 7 chord, starting on the 3rd, but I have a little lower neighbor. top part is kind of doing a enclosure around the F, which is, we could call that the 7th of the 5 chord. And then we jump down to the A, which you can think of as the 9th. And then we're, our target note, the last note is the D, which would be on the C major 7 chord. So in the 9th of the C major 7 chord, and we're just kind of playing the upper neighbor to that. So now, once I'm solid with that, I'll say, okay, let's take that through all the 12 keys. And I'll choose a way to go. Like I might go up in half steps. Okay, and then I'll do that one a few times. And then go up another half step. Put my metronome back on. One. Okay, that's a little slow. It's a little slower than I want. Let's do it there. Okay, so that's like, I just heard like, oh yeah, that kind of comes out of Donna Lee there. You could do that whole part of Donna Lee. You could, and like it's okay if you're doing this and then it, like, oh, it kind of goes somewhere else and it changes. I don't have to finish what I started. I'm like, oh, I like this better. Wow. Okay, so now it's kind of evolved into that. So going back to the original key. So it's kind of like a Donna Lee-esque line now. Okay, that's fun. Okay, so let's go. Let's go down to 80. One, two. Huh. Feels better if I do it like this. So when you're doing these things, if you find yourself like messing up, just stop and focus on that spot that you're messing up. Go as slow as you need to get it right. And don't worry like what tempo you were at. You know, get things accurate and then you move on. Yeah, the tradition. I have it here. I was playing that this morning. This is the saxophone that Stacy's talking about. This is an amazing saxophone. It's basically like a professional level saxophone. You can only get these right now. You can get these for rent at Sweetwater. And we're coming out with a version of that is a for sale version, and it's got like a really cool lacquer color. It's got engraving on it. It's got a couple other tweaks to it. Comes with a really cool like professional level case. It's going to come with a really, really good mouthpiece. So yeah, I love that saxophone. I'm practicing soprano. I said earlier I'm practicing soprano because we have this new mouthpiece coming out. Someone was asking about the Mernon mouthpieces. Who was asking about that? Oh yeah, this mouthpiece is coming out next week. This is the soprano, the one I'm playing on, the Burnin Soprano, and we have some other really cool mouthpieces in the works. I won't say more yet, but yeah, mouthpieces are fun. What mouthpiece would you recommend for a 50s and 60s R&B sound? I mean, you can get a lot of different sound. Any one mouthpiece can give you a lot of different sounds. So I would say find a mouthpiece that's easy to play. I mean, and the mouthpiece is not always going to be the thing that is going to allow you to hone in on one particular sound. That's going to be you and the way you play. So I like versatile mouthpieces. I like a mouthpiece that I can play in multiple different styles with, first of all. And, you know, most mouthpieces will allow you to do that. Most good mouthpieces will allow you to do that. So find, you know, for 50s, 60s R&B sound, I mean, honestly, like the mouthpieces that the Cats played on back then were not always as good as, you know, like what we have available now. The reason people back then just sounded good is because they just played, you know, the people you're hearing on those recordings, they're just great players and they would have had their sound on any mouthpiece. Now, with what's available with mouthpieces, it's like you have a bit of a shortcut because you can kind of get something that's, you know, it's not the mouthpiece the problem. Like, you know, it's you if you're not getting your sound because things are just so dialed in and tuned up. So yeah, man, you could, well, I would say try the Burnin. That's what I would use. Burnin on tenor is great because you could play 50s, 60s R&B. You can also play jazz and rock and everything. Okay. Oh, picked up a better sax recently. Really blown away by the quality. Yeah. Yeah, the better sax horns are great. And somebody asked what soprano this is. This is a prototype of the Better Sax Classic, which is our entry-level line, and this one's going to be coming out next year. By the way, I forgot to mention this. It is the Black Friday weekend, and the tenors, the Better Sax Classic tenors, like that one on the wall behind me, it's on sale, $200 off in the United States. So it was like already an amazing price at $14.99. Now it's $12.99. So if you need a tenor, like that horn is sick. It's so good. It's just so amazing. Well, we should make them more expensive because then people would, I think people think, oh, it can't be that good if it's not really expensive. But I just like to keep things not too expensive. Yeah, this is going to be one body, not with detachable necks, the classic soprano. Yeah, and the color, it's like a darker lacquer. We call it like a cognac lacquer. Yeah, Juan, the whole beginning of this live stream, you can go back and watch it. It was all about how I practice for the sound, like exactly what I do. So you can go back and watch that. That's like long tones with a tuner, with the drones in your ear, and do it daily, you know, and then you get into other things. Yeah, as far as pro horns, well, like this, these, the tradition, and the one that's coming, that's like another version of this, which is called the Session. Those are technically intermediate. They're intermediate priced horns. They're really like entry-level pro in quality and play and how they play and everything and the sound and what you get with it. It's just the price is in that middle tier. You know, I think this is going to be like $2,400 or something like that, which is like what a Yamaha intermediate saxophone would cost, or less than. I think it's even less than a Yamaha intermediate horn. But like I would take this every time over what the other things that are out there. Yeah. So let me go back to playing. I'm getting these little breaks, getting these little embouchure breaks while I'm answering questions. So let's see, how does that one go? And you know, as I'm like working out a line through all the 12 keys, it's best to just not have the metronome on. It's just going to be a bit of a distraction. Put the metronome on when you really know it, and then you want to kind of work on your time feel. So, and like notice when I'm practicing, like if I'm playing something right now for you that I just already knew how to, that I've already practiced a million times and I could play, like, yeah, it would sound better, but I wouldn't be getting better because I'm just playing something I already know how to do. So if you really want to practice, you need to be going slow. You need to be making mistakes that you then correct immediately. And you need to be focusing on one thing at a time, and not otherwise you're not getting the most out of your practice time. So it's just a good sign that you're going to be getting better with your practice time if you're practicing something that's a bit difficult for you. You don't want it to be too difficult, because then you're not going to be having any fun and you're going to be getting frustrated. If it's too easy, you're not really you're not challenging yourself enough to get the most out of the practice time. Now this is one that goes pretty high. You see, it's that one spot in the middle, that like those big leaps. Like the first part I could do in my sleep, because I've probably practiced something else similar to that a million times. And the last part I could do I could do that because that's just like diminished. So it's just, I just really need to work on the middle part for each one of these. So that just saves me a lot of time if I'm thinking of it that way. Yeah, so this is a good question. How do you find that good material to learn as not too difficult to go out? First of all, everything, you can make everything, you could change the difficulty level of everything very easily. You can make it faster. You could take it through all the keys like what I'm doing. So it's one level of difficulty just to learn this lick in an easy key, let's say. But then to take it through all 12 keys, you know, that is harder. I started out, it was easier. That's how it started out. And then I heard this ending to it, which has just come straight out of Donnelly. But I added that to my exercise. So I made it more difficult because I felt like I wanted it to be a bit more of a challenge. So that's what I was saying earlier as well. If you're making up your own exercises, you can customize everything to what you want to do, given where you're at. So if you're new to, let's say you're very new to playing, improvising bebop or something, then you might want to stick with something really simple. You know, that I've just taken out like the hard part of it. So you could do that. You see, for me, there's no challenge there. I could do that. It's too easy. So I could do that and it would sound better. But for me to actually be improving, I got to do something that's harder for me. So. Like that. Next one. Okay, so the hardest part of that one is going from B flat to B, right? So I gotta work on that. is some keys are just harder. Some keys are going to be harder, and you need to spend more time on those. Where are we now? Okay, next. That's it. So now I've gone through all 12. Now, second time through, it should be a bit easier. Don't try to go too fast. If you're messing up, stop. Slow it down to a speed where you can't get it wrong. Usually just doing that once, fixes it. And then all right, so now I've taken it all around, and I would probably then go and put the metronome on and get it really smooth. But now I feel like moving on to something else, so I will. Am I thinking Intervals are purely feel ear when going through 12 keys. Good question. Ideally, like if you do that sort of thing a lot, you get to a point where you don't have to think. Like that's the idea is you want to get to a point where you don't have to think. And that just comes with doing this, like just taking new things through all 12 keys and just kind of doing that as a daily exercise. You know, and for me, like I'll take something like, okay, that I never took that exact phrase through all the 12 keys like I just did, and I'll do it, and the first time might be a little bit rough, I'll go slow, difficult keys, I'll get through them. Second time, okay, now I can get through it. You know, and after whatever, doing it for 15 minutes, I'll be able to play the thing really smoothly at a faster tempo through all 12 keys. And that's not a particularly hard one that I just did either. If I did something that was like really... I've seen someone, yeah, this is funny that someone just said. Seriously, does yelling when you make mistakes help correct them during practice? Well, no, that doesn't help. What helps correcting them is to stop. If I yell at myself, it's because I'm like, oh, why am I doing the thing that I tell everybody else not to do? That's why I yell at myself. When you do something that you know better. So in my case, if I'm playing something too fast to execute it accurately, and I do that like more than once or twice, I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Don't do that. Go slow. And then I go slow, and I go, yeah, that works every time. So yeah, you want to get to the point where you're not thinking so much or at all to be able to execute these things, and that just comes with practicing. But at first, I'm thinking not so much intervals. I'm thinking how the notes relate to the chords. So in that case, I'm thinking if it's like I might be thinking of a 2-5-1 chord progression or just one chord, and I'm just thinking of how the different notes relate. So then when I switch keys, you know, I'm just thinking of the numbers of the chord tones, or the scale degrees. That's what I'm thinking. Have I ever done or practiced classical? Yeah, I did a degree in classical saxophone, undergraduate degree. Just looking through some comments here. I just use random backing tracks, then have to find the notes to music that I've never seen before, but habitually keep playing the same notes. It's interesting to say the least. My practice schedule is long tones, basic ear transcription, basic improvement over backing tracks, and parts I need for my band. Anything else you'd recommend? Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, so it's good doing all those things you're doing. But like in this practice session that I'm demonstrating for you, yeah, I'm doing a lot of talking, but I've been going for over an hour and I haven't even played a song yet. Okay, so that's not, and that's mainly because I need to get better at playing soprano. So I'm just really working on fundamentals and stuff. But yeah, you got to play songs. So put a jazz standard in the, suggest a jazz standard in the comments, and I will pick one that I'll work on. Because you got to be practicing songs. And as far as this comment goes, yeah, make sure you're practicing something. Like if you got parts for your band, okay, I mean, that's usually not very much fun, right? And you probably already know those pretty well. You need to practice something that gets you excited and gets you wanting to play, and something that's going to bring you to the next level. So something that's challenging. So everybody can start learning songs, like melodies to songs they like. Whatever level you're at, from the day one, you could start learning melodies to songs, because melodies to songs usually aren't that hard. But that's the most fun thing to do. So yeah, learn songs, learn melodies to songs, and learn them without having to read them. Because it's like if you wanted to sing somebody a song, are you going to sit there and read the lyrics For them, no. You can learn the words and you sing it. And you learn the melody. You know, are you going to read? If you want to sing someone a song, you're going to read the notes off of a page? No, you wouldn't do that. That would look weird. And it wouldn't, you know. So we have to learn how to play song melodies the same way we would sing them. You know. So, and it's not hard. Everyone can do this. It's just when you very habitually always learn everything from reading it from sheet music, like in your band class, you just think that's, not that you think that's the only way to do it, but that's the only way you know how to do it. And that's the problem that a lot of people have. Thanks. I'm now good enough to sing and play my one and only love. Yeah. Great. Doing what one tells everyone else not to do, and then yelling at oneself about it is a very good thing to do. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, part of this, if you play clarinet, go check out Clarinet Ninja. He's got a great channel with some good content. Part of like doing this is like practicing in front of people. Like the whole point of practicing is like you have to sound bad. If you don't sound bad when you're practicing, then you're not practicing anything. And I want to like show people like, yeah, I don't sound good when I practice. It's like when I record something and put it on YouTube, hopefully it sounds good. But if everything I practiced was always perfect the first time, then I wouldn't even need to practice, right? Like, it doesn't work that way. Okay, all of me. Okay, that's a good suggestion. We could do that. Okay, so if I want to learn all of me, first you got to know the chords. So we're gonna do it in C. So first you got to know the melody and the chords. Like that's just knowing the information that's on that lead sheet. You have to know it. You just have to know it. And it's not that much information, but you got to memorize that stuff. So I would start by learning the melody. And I did this in the live stream yesterday where I went through the melody to Fly Me to the Moon, and I was like, oh yeah, instead it's one thing, you just learn the notes on the page. Anybody can do that. But then like learn how to, in a jazz tradition, we want to learn how to phrase the melody in an individual way. So every recording of All of Me or Fly Me to the Moon or any of these standards, the melody is phrased differently. Every single example you can find, you're going to have an individualistic way of interpreting that melody because nobody's reading it off of out of the real book. So I think it's really important to take every melody you want to learn. First, you learn the notes of that melody, and then you may learn some of those recorded versions to get some ideas of like, oh, this is how people that know how to do this do it. And then once you've kind of consumed a lot of that content, try to make your own version. So what I'll just go phrase by phrase, and I'll just try to make up my own way of playing a melody. And for this, I'll probably put in more embellishments in than I would normally in like a performance, but it's just kind of another exercise. So I just added that little tag to the end of that first phrase. And I could do that same thing. But I have to change that last note to fit the chords. So I just worked out a way to play the first, what was that, 4 bars of All of Me that I kind of like. And I could just, and that's fun for me. Like that kind of practice is fun because it's creative and I don't know, it's not so repetitive like practicing the exercises. That's also fun too, but it's more like meditative and like doing exercise. When I get into learning songs like this, I'm like, oh, how can I, make this melody more interesting the way I play it? Okay, so that's the bridge. What can I do on the bridge? Maybe I don't do any, maybe I just play the bridge really straight. Well, that's not really the bridge. That's the second half of the first day. There's no bridge on All of Me. And you could put a little thing in there. Okay, so now I've worked out how to play the second half of that A section. Maybe I'll go back to the beginning so I don't forget everything that I did. Oh yeah, I forgot the beginning already. And even though I'm kind of working out a way to play a melody, I can't play it the exact same way every time. So it's always new. And by doing that, you're gonna continually come up with new ideas. So don't think of it as like, oh, it's working out the way to play the melody. That's so boring. There's no creativity in that. And that's really part of the tradition. If you could listen to the great jazz musicians when they were playing, and they were playing usually like every night or several nights a week, and for stretches they'd be playing the same repertoire. Like they'd have like these are the tunes we're playing, this is the set list, this is what the band plays. And yeah, they're always introducing new things, but there's a lot of things that they just are doing every night. And if you were to listen to all those, go to the show every night, you'd hear like, oh, they're using the same language, they're playing the melody. It's always going to be slightly different, but they're going to be having their way of playing these things that's the same every time. There's no such thing as like every time it's completely new. This is part of the process. You got to get to that point where you're able to play it, find one way to play it good. And then that's going to evolve. So there's a lot of comments going on here. Oh, thank you, Emma. I'm still here. Jazz standard. Good question. Jazz standard, anything that's in like the Great American Songbook, that's one way. Now the jazz standards are also the really great compositions by jazz musicians, the great jazz musicians who are also composers. There's lots of their compositions, you know, like think of anybody like Duke Ellington or Thelonious Monk or John Coltrane, you know, all of these different musicians they compose songs that have kind of become part of the what we call jazz standard. Okay. Mono soprano. It's 6 in the morning. Yeah. Sorry, so early. Yeah, someone asked, I'm demonstrating how I would like practice a melody of a standard, and someone suggested all of me. Oh, flamingo. Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, and just by doing that with melodies, wow, it's just you get some. You gotta kind of stop. It's and do that. And yeah, I would apply it to every melody, and I certainly haven't done that with every melody, but it's really good. Okay, so after you kind of get your melody down, then you should probably. Wow, not necessarily after. You need to have those chords. Before you can do that exercise that I was just doing, you need to know the chords, because if you don't, like, how are you going to know what embellishments to put on it? But you really want to do practice those chords like a rhythm section player would. You know, just so like all of me just play the roots. You know, and I don't have like every standard memorized. It's a combination of knowing like these harmonic patterns, these harmonic building block patterns that get used all the time. And, you know, like I have to think about it. I have to be, but the thing is, as I'm going through it, like, oh, the next chord is that one, because I can hear it in my head, if that makes sense. So first chord is C major, concert C major. And then all of me does this thing, which is really cool. I love this. I love this sound. Not a lot of modern, it's kind of old style. It's like when you go to that, it's like the 5 of the relative minor in the second bar. So that 5 of the relative minor. So I just love that sound of. We're just straight away we're major, and if you can think of standards like this, you don't want to think of them as chord, 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 chord. I have to memorize this sequence of chords. That's impossible. I mean, you would have to have like this photographic memory to do that. Instead, it's just common patterns like we have in language when we're speaking, or just in everything else that we do as humans, is pattern recognition. So if you can start recognizing the patterns of the chords, then you can easily kind of learn like every song that there is. So you want to really think of that as we're on the 1 chord major, and then we're going to the relative minor, which is, you know, on soprano sax going to be B minor, and we play the 5 before that. Oh yeah, but it doesn't go to B minor, it goes to B dominant 7 there. Later it goes to B minor. You see, I don't have it memorized. My ear tells me, like, oh no, it's not B minor there. It's a major third on that. So that B is getting us to E minor. And this is where it's getting us to the relative minor B minor with the 5 before it. And then it does this thing that happens in like 67% of all standards where it goes to the 2 dominant 7 chord. Like that just happens so much. And once you recognize these patterns, like your ear is just going to take you there. Or if you've never even heard the song before, you can hear a song for once and be like, oh, it's this pattern, then this pattern, and this pattern that I've seen a million times. And then you just know it. And then it's 2-5-1. And now we're on the second half of the second A, which it goes to the 4 chord. And then it could go to 2 different places there on that. After that 4 chord, it can go to like 4 minor, you know, like your back door, 2-5. And you could do, yeah, you could do different things. You could just kind of, but it's very standard there. So, yeah, learn all of the chords and then play different games with the chords. So like one real basic game, not so much fun, is just like playing your roots. So know your roots for whatever, and then know, you know, just got to learn all those chord tones. So then I might do something where I'll play all the, just the 1, 3, 5, 7. Yeah, and then, you know, I got a little bit, I was still pretty much only playing chord tones until the very end, but I started mixing up the order instead of always starting on the root. And just like really, you want to make sure you can play, like, you know, every chord tone to every chord. And if you can do that, like you can, and then you just have to, then you're just like connecting dots when you're improvising over. So I would like, I make sure I learn chord tones on a tune. And if I'm playing a tune and I'm not able to make the changes on it, I was like, all right, I yell at myself and then I stop and I go back and I learn the chord progression and I'll just play the roots of it on the saxophone. No accompaniment, no backing track. Backing track is like the worst thing. I mean, they're fun and they're good, but if you're practicing with backing tracks, you're not able to stop. I mean, you are, but you have to like press pause. Like, you don't want to have to rely on the backing track to tell you what the harmony is, and you don't want to have to like have this thing going where, like, if you make a mistake, you want to stop and correct it. Like, okay, I don't know that spot. That's fine. There's going to be spots we don't know or we forgot, or maybe there's some alternate changes you want to put in there or something. You have to stop and just work on that, just that spot. And if you have the backing track, it kind of discourages you from doing that. It also, like, you end up playing just the changes that are on that backing track. What if wanted to play something else. So I just do a lot of practice without backing tracks. And then, like, once I know a tune and it's really good, and I'm like, okay, I know all the changes, I know all the, you know, and I've worked out how I want to play melody, I've done all the work, then I'll put the backing track on for fun. And then it's like, okay, I'm allowed to just have some fun and play along with that. But I find if I just put on backing tracks and try to practice with them, I will end up, there'll be spots of the tune that are weaknesses, and I won't, you know, and I won't really correct those. There'll always be a weakness until you stop and sort it out. I'm doing the exercise you're dreaming about back when I started playing sax, imagining improvised chord changes and playing melodies over that. I didn't know people actually did this. Yeah, that's actually super fun. I find that to be super fun, just to, yeah, you can, this is going to be on YouTube. You can watch the replay, the whole thing on YouTube. When it's, yes, everybody can watch this. You're watching live. I appreciate everyone watching live. That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, this is something that I always like, the outlining the chords. I remember I took a lesson from somebody once, and they were like, it was a long time ago, like in the early days, and they were like, you need to be able to play a tune with no accompaniment and hit all the chord changes. Like, okay, well, that makes sense. That sounds like something I should be able to do. And yeah, like, and then I just, yeah. And I guess back then we still had to put like backing tracks on, like with physicals. There was no MP3s. Like you had to actually have a record or a cassette to play your backing tracks. It just, they didn't get used as much because it wasn't as easy. You know, things didn't just loop around like forever. So you had to have like a physical big thing to play it on. Yeah, it's almost like all the technology is really good, makes things convenient, but it also, we get into this laziness thing that is not good for us. Yeah. What is your favorite type of saxophone? Well, on an alto or tenor, I like alto and tenor the most because they're just like the most, I don't know, they're easiest for me. Easiest to pick up. Although soprano, I want to love the soprano more because it's so small and convenient, but it just takes so much work. So you just got to put the work in on soprano, and I'm trying to do that. Are you asking for my honest opinion about Aerosold, or are you commenting on the honest opinion I already gave? Aerosolds are great. Just don't overuse it. I mean, when else you get to play with Ron Carter? Aerosolds are great. Don't overuse it. Learn the song without. You got to learn songs without the backing track. A lot of those Aerosolds are really fast tempos too. Like I made that mistake. I was trying to learn tunes by putting on Aerosolds that are going super fast. It's like that's you know how long it would take you to actually learn it properly if you could only, you know, no, you got to go slow. You got to go slow. You got to learn it. And then to work it up to those tempos, that takes a lot of time. Yeah, it's like this is like yeah, we're just like in a seminar, or like we're all just talking about stuff. It's good. You guys' questions are good. Oh yeah, and I'm sorry for the time. I'm in France, so it's like early afternoon here. The price on the new Better Sax Soprano, it's not entirely, since we haven't like going into production yet, we don't like have all like the pricing stuff exactly. And I don't want to say, because if I say, but like with this classic line, it's going to be super competitively priced and, you know, better than whatever else you can get at that price. Let's put it that way. That's kind of my commitment on this. From the mic that I'm using, you know what? This was always, doing live streams like this was always such a pain because of like audio. It was so hard to get anything that didn't sound horrible without a really complicated setup where I had to switch microphones. So now, and tell me if this isn't the case, but I can talk and you hear me fine. And then I can play saxophone and it's not like, it doesn't sound horrible. And it's just all the same microphone. And that's just because the software I'm using StreamYard, and they have this new feature where it like balances the audio and it does a pretty good job. So I was like, oh, now that I can do these and I don't have to like press a button every time I switch between talking and playing saxophone, and it just doesn't sound horrible. I'm like, okay, I could do it. It's easier. That was like my hang up before doing live streams, is that it just always sounded terrible. So I hope it doesn't sound terrible. Do you have a recommendation for an affordable mouthpiece, which is great? Well, yeah. It depends on affordable. I mean, we've developed this, the Better Sax Classic. This is an awesome mouthpiece. It's the alto version. We have it for alto and tenor, and Barry is coming soon. It's a great mouthpiece. And see if you can see. This thing is always going to focus on there. It's a great mouthpiece, hand finished. Really versatile. So this is a great starter mouthpiece that you can develop your sound on. I mean, I can play this, no problem. And it's like $40, and now it's on sale for Black Friday too. So that I would recommend. And then like after that, we have the the Burnin mouthpieces. I'm playing on Burnin for soprano, and that's coming out next week. So like these mouthpieces are good, but they're quite a bit more expensive. Depends on what you think, on your budget. How does it compare to the highly recommended ISS 475? Yeah, it's going to be a lot cheaper than that. But what is a comparable target for that instrument? Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, obviously Yamaha makes really good instruments, and whenever we're designing instruments, we're always like, okay, there's a standard of comparison for anything, right? So when we made the classic alto, like that was, you got to compare that to a Yamaha student saxophone, and you want to get at least as good as that and less expensive, right? The challenge with soprano is like it's got to play in tune. Like this one feels really good. I mean, it feels really good, and that's pretty easy because there's so many great examples of really good ergonomics on saxophones now. And you don't need to reinvent that. Go with something that's really, really good and kind of stick with that. Like the older sopranos might have some really good, and a lot of older saxophones have good sound and everything, but the ergonomics is just terrible. And now the ergonomics on modern saxophones are pretty well dialed in. But it's the intonation, and so that's why this one, as you can see, like we've been like doing different neck areas for this, and like trying all different things with the intonation to like really dial it in as close as possible, and then still make it something. This is like you can see. This one is going to have nice hand engraving on it there, and it's got the dark lacquer. Oh, that's a great horn. No, it's not too large for beginners, not at all. And here's another thing about tip opening as well, is that it's not just about the tip opening. There's other parts to it, like what else is happening in the mouthpiece on the inside. It's not just like tip opening is like, mouthpieces are really complicated, actually. And every time you change one variable here, like it changes how the other variables interact. So it's never on any mouthpiece design, isn't like tip opening is just one variable that is working in combination with several others. No, this mouthpiece will feel a little bit more open, but it's good for beginners on a saxophone. Because saxophone's not a clarinet. Oh, look who's here. I've got one for you, Jay. How do the sacrifices to your social and family life be? Jamie, you're always asking about content creation questions. Oh, okay. Well, this is very specifically for you. I don't know if it's going to relate to other people here. Um, that question, but how does sacrifice of your social and family life, being a content creator and educator, compare? Well, honestly, I work at home now, so um, and before gigging a lot was like that was my social life, you know, going to gigs and being at the parties or being at the events and being with the other musicians. That was my social life. So my social life has suffered because I don't do as many gigs. My family life is a lot better because I'm home all the time. You know. So actually, I think yeah, it's very different. It's very different. What is this question? Are we getting a soprano for finishing master? How long should I play in a stock Yanni mouthpiece before considering a new one? I mean, Yanni Gazelle makes really good stock mouthpieces. And for like classical saxophone or anything, you could play the Yanni stock mouthpiece. And there is no, this is a question. It's funny, I was watching Bob Reynolds' blog that he just put out yesterday. And he talks about the mouthpiece thing. And yeah, you want a good mouthpiece. Like he's obsessing over mouthpieces now. And he's always been someone who told everybody, don't obsess over mouthpieces. And he's totally obsessing about it, making video after video. And he touched on that in his vlog. He's like, oh, I know I'm the one that says don't obsess over mouthpieces. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Yeah, don't. So in that case, you could look at Bob's advice, which is just get a good mouthpiece and play it and get good on that. And I totally agree with that, but I also, when there's so many great options of mouthpieces out there, it's a shame to never try anything different. I used to do that. I just had like a couple mouthpieces and I just played those. And then I realized there's this whole world of amazing mouthpieces out there. Like, why would I deny myself that? You know, so now I just enjoy that. I mean, you could tell, you know, I have so many. I think that by playing lots of different mouthpieces, it makes, well, you learn what you like, and you got to play each one for a while. You know, when you're used to playing one mouthpiece, everything that's different is going to feel weird at first. So you need to get some sort of more flexibility with mouthpieces. But then, so I would just say, play your Yannick style mouthpiece that comes with that horn, but try as many other mouthpieces as you can. Like anytime someone else has a soprano mouth with a different mouthpiece, say, oh, can I try your mouthpiece? You know, and I clean it and try it. Go to the store and try every soprano mouthpiece they have. Go to these different trade shows or whatever. Just try as many different things. Buy some used mouth. Like if you don't have a lot of money, buy some used mouthpieces. Or, you know, you could even order a couple mouthpieces from a store, try a couple for a week, and then send one back. Trade mouthpieces with other people. Like just try things. Because you will inevitably come across something that you just like so much more than whatever you were playing before. And then once you've tried everything, you'll be able to like, oh, I like these. These I really like. You know, there'll be multiple ones that you really like. That's always going to happen. There's no like, you have to play this or you have to move up at this point. If the Yanagisawa is the one for you, then play that one. Bob is having a crisis of choice. I've been watching this. Yeah, well, I've talked to Bob a lot about with his mouthpiece situation. Yeah. I'm glad he's documenting the whole thing for everybody else to see. I played 4C before switching to summer S80 C star on alto and tenor. Changed my tone. I feel a lot. Yeah, but there's no better. It's better for you or better for any individual. Better. Yeah, no, Yanni is definitely better than 4C. I mean, that's without a doubt. 4C is not really that good of a mouthpiece. And like Yamaha would tell you that, you know, like they make mouthpieces too that are much better than that. That's just the basic one they throw in the case. Uh, this is a great question. Okay, I love Yanagisawa. I love the company. I love the way they do things. I love all the saxophones. They would not want me to say this, but my experience with the they've been so consistently good. This is the problem kind of with Yanagisawa. They've been just so consistently good. It's not like kind of getting a new iPhone or a new MacBook, you know. You're not getting much for your upgrade. They don't change that much from one model to the next. And when you have something that's so good, why change it much? And they didn't want to fall into the trap of Selmer, who had like the best saxophone ever, and then said, "Oh, you know what? You know what we need to do? We need to change that." Like if Selmer just kind of still made Mark Sixes and only made very small incremental changes to that design, you know, instead they're like, "No, we have to redesign the saxophone." Wow, and they didn't really redesign the saxophone that much. They just kind of marketed it as that. Whereas Yanagisawa, they really, and I don't know if this is intentional, but they make really, really small incremental changes. And those changes are usually, oh, we added this little bit here, or we added this little thing here. They're not really touching the bore, you know, or how those saxophones play. So, yeah, no, you could stick with that. Whatever, any Yanagisawa from like the early 80s on, you could pretty much stick with forever. Yeah, I have a Yanagisawa tenor from the 80s. It's great, but somebody's coming to visit. I'm doing it live stream. My daughter asking for something. And we're going to wrap this up soon. But yeah, Yanagisawa, yeah, you could just stick with those. What is the best DAW? Oh, whatever one you have and you know how to use, because they all do pretty much the same thing. Like, you could do it on GarageBand if you have a Mac, and that's free. Don't make a mistake of buying an eBay YTS 82 for... Huh. I mean, Richie, if you've got if money is not a problem, I always tell people, buy what you've got, you know, what works for your budget. So if you've got extra money, then it's no problem buying an expensive saxophone. If you don't, though, like if you need to like not spend a lot of money for whatever reason, there are there's a lot of options that cost a lot. Again, we have this mentality where we always feel like, I do the same thing. Like, oh, I want to buy this new iPad or whatever. Like, oh, but if I spend a little bit more, it's that much, yeah. And in the end, it's like this is just the basic one, you know. Like, it does everything I need. So it really depends. With saxophones and musical instruments in general, and pretty much everything, you get diminishing returns the more money you spend. So the whatever, the 82Z, that's the professional Yamaha. Yeah, you're getting a hand-hammered bell. You're getting, you know, these different things with it. They're really great. Made in Japan, you know, all these things. Really good stuff. But you're ending up spending so much more and only getting, you know, those things, how much are they worth? So it always depends. If you can afford a more expensive saxophone, I always say, yeah, treat yourself. It's great. But if you can't, it's fine. Or if you just don't want to spend extra money, you can get really good saxophones for much less. Do you have any tips when moving to bigger tip opening? Yeah, softer reeds. Don't bite. Yeah, so bigger tip opening, that means you got to go softer reeds because the reed has to travel further to vibrate. So you need softer reeds so you don't have to put more pressure and then end up biting and squeaking. Also, yeah, when you go to a bigger tip opening, if it's a different kind of mouthpiece, the facing might be in a different spot. So where the amount of mouthpiece you're used to taking into your mouth might change. It might be different. You might need to take more or a little less. A bigger tip opening, you might usually want to take a little bit more mouthpiece in. And so you might not be taking enough mouthpiece, and that can also result in a squeak. Playing Yamaha 62S3 with Selmer C-Star and Leisure. Will a bigger tip opening on the Selmer help me with projection without losing? Well, a C-Star is never going to project that much. That's the whole, that mouthpiece is designed to not really project in the same way that, you know, other mouthpieces are designed to project. So, I mean, if you want to project more, you get a more projecting mouthpiece. Bigger tip opening is not necessarily going to help you project more. It should allow you maybe to put some more air through it. And I don't know anyone that plays a Selmer like that S90 mouthpiece on a tip opening other than C-Star, though. So I don't even know if the other tip openings are good. Like, does anybody play a D star? I've never, you know, like with mouthpieces, every time you design a new tip opening, like it's a whole new design that has to be done. And you'll find with some brands of mouthpieces, like the one tip opening is really good, but the other one's like, you know. So, and usually like the mouthpieces, like everybody's playing the same tip opening. There's a reason for that. What is your recommendation for professional mouthpieces that are good for classical and jazz? Ooh, you know what you could get away with is like a Meyer. Like a Meyer 5 is one of those you could kind of get away with. But, you know, on the classical side, you know, it depends. Like if you're going to be around the classic sound snobs, they're going to be like, you're not playing a classical mouthpiece. So, the mentality of cost, gotta beat up. Yeah. I mean, you could, the gear is not, yeah. Excellent answer. Still conflicted. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, yeah, I could just tell you, hey, you should have bought the better sax tenor. I mean, it's a great deal, but a Yamaha 82Z is a great saxophone too. Don't try not to have regrets. That's the other thing. Like anytime you buy any of these things, that's the trap we all can fall into. Is like, oh, now I regret. There's so much choice. Of course, there's a chance you're gonna you're gonna feel like you didn't buy the right thing. I did that. We all have to just get used to. You gotta love the saxophone you have. Love the one you're with. Okay, that's really important. Because if you're blaming your saxophone, or if you're thinking I didn't get the right one, or you know I would sound better if I have a different. If you're doing that, you're in this trap of this is what Bob was talking about in his last video. Like you end up spending all your time doing that instead of just playing the thing. Just play the thing with the one you've got. Big tip opening, less prone to squeaking, but harder to play in tune. Now, I find big tip opening less prone to squeaking, but harder to play in tune. Shouldn't be. But again, if some tip openings are better than others in how they're designed, and that could affect things. Bought a brand new Barry, no name Barry, $1,500 and plays great, all purple. Brass keys. A purple Barry. Wow. Nice. Does getting a mouthpiece upgrade give me a better sound? No. Getting a new mouthpiece does not get you a better sound. Practicing gets you a better sound. Having a good mouthpiece will make everything easier, though. So if you have a bad mouthpiece, you're making it hard for yourself, and it could become really, really difficult to get a good sound. So good mouthpiece, kind of gives you a, you don't have a disadvantage. So I would recommend everyone make sure you get, so like this one that I've talked about, like the Better Sax Classic, this one is great, and it's under $40, and like you can get a good sound on it. You could develop a good sound and good habits, and you don't have to worry about like this holding you back. Wow, a lot of questions here. What's the difference between a Rovner Dark and Versa? Rovner Dark is like a lot less expensive, and the Versa has like this extra plates, these plates in it. Good mouthpiece. They're both good mouthpieces. Ligatures are important. Like you need a ligature to hold the reed on your saxophone, but the mouthpiece is so much more important than the ligature. The reed is so much more important than the ligature. Like the ligature is like the finishing touches on the whole package. So I would spend a lot more time getting the mouthpiece you want, and then like, okay, let me find a good ligature for this. And again, yeah, you're gonna try a few different ligatures, and there's gonna be some that you like better for whatever reason, but it's, you know, really we're getting into diminishing returns when we get to ligatures. Cheap saxophone that I love. How long? I mean, saxophones can last forever. This is the thing. It's not an iPhone. They don't they don't stop making software updates for your saxophone. There's literally no reason why you would have to play a saxophone an unbelievable amount to wear it out. And let's put it in perspective. There are saxophone players, many saxophone players, who play on their instruments for an unbelievable amount of hours, and they never wear out. I mean, yeah, you can wear out little spots where like the metal literally will like disintegrate over time from the acids in your skin. But that can be replaced. If you get to that point, okay, but you've put so many hours in at that point. Everybody else that's like worried about their saxophone not lasting, saxophones last forever. And everything on the saxophone that can wear out can be replaced. They're just parts. It's the design. It's a brilliant design. Like just parts that you just need to replace. And if you take good care of it and clean the thing, like with the swabbing and all of that, you know, they'll last forever. I play Yamaha 62 with Jody Jazz Custom Dark, Alexander Reeds. Do you have another reed tips? Huh. Yeah. Reeds, Alexander Reeds, those are good. Those are kind of, I think they're on the softer side though, from memory. Maybe just try harder reeds for the higher notes. A little bit more reed strength helps. Just be grateful for what we have and can afford. Yeah, exactly. You're so good on all the questions. Brilliant. Thank you, Jamie. Aren't you supposed to be making content now? Jamie, you should be making a YouTube video. Okay, good. We should wrap it up. I've been doing this for 2 hours. It goes fast. Okay, I'll do more of these live streams because it's fun. Yeah, thanks everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Oh, Black Friday sale. Here, I'm gonna put it in the. I'm gonna put it in the chat. The Black Friday sale. All the courses are on sale. Even the accessories. There's a link. The accessories are on sale. 20% off. So now's a good time to shop at Better Sax. Okay, bye everybody.